Welcome into the Thursday, July 14th edition of the Locked On Leafs podcast. I'm Mike DiStefano with Dave Morassutti. The Maple Leafs making 4 signings on day one of free agency, including an intriguing goaltender that they've added to make a tandem alongside Matt Murray. We'll chat about that. Johnny Hockey throwing us all for a loop with his final destination. We'll get into all that and more on today's edition of Locked On Leafs.
You're Locked On Maple Leafs, your daily podcast on the Toronto Maple Leafs. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Leafs podcast, your one-stop shop for all things Leafs. I'm your host, Mike DiStefano from TSN 1050 Toronto Radio, also known as Al's brother on TSN's Overdrive and TSN 1050's Leafs Lunch. Joining me, it's my co-host, Dave Morassutti from Sportsnet, also writer for the NHLPA. Locked On Leafs is a daily Maple Leaf-centric podcast, so be sure to subscribe for free wherever you get your podcast from. You can also now catch us up on video platform via YouTube. Search up Locked On Leafs on YouTube and give us a subscribe. Also leave a like and let us know down below in the comment section what you thought about Kyle Dubas's actions on day one of free agency. Because, Dave, they came away with 4 players today. 4 players, one of which was our number one guy in yesterday's pod that we wanted the Maple Leafs to go after, and we'll start with him. It was Ilya Samsonov, the young former first-round goaltender of the Washington Capitals, 25 years old. They bring him in on a 1-year prove-it deal, which apparently he asked for the 1-year term, which is interesting. Only $1.8 million to be the 1B to Matt Murray's 1A. Your thoughts on the deal, my friend?
Well, he was my top target going into the free agency because we knew that out of all the goaltenders there, he was the only one that I felt more comfortable having in a potential timeshare situation. And if Matt Murray were to go down with an injury, you can at least feel a little bit at ease knowing that you have a guy like Ilya Samsonov that can step up. And the other reason too is for the reason you said. I feel like this is a motivated player, right? He was not tendered an offer from the Washington Capitals. He was a first round pick, so there was a lot of things that I feel like this is the perfect bounce back candidate. Buy low and hopefully somebody that will almost many will wonder if the Capitals were a little bit too eager to get rid of Samsonov. And I know they went and got Darcy Kemper, so they're not exactly, losing sleep over losing Samsonov. But I think that for the Leafs, you gotta this was like the perfect match right here for them in free agency.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I'm going to try something that I haven't been able to do in a while. It's not working. Is it working? Did it work? No, maybe not.
Here we go. I got you.
There it is. Okay. Yeah. See, I still need to learn how to use this program. So, this is, Samsonov's basically, these are his numbers over the course of the last couple of seasons. Can you scroll down just a tad there so we can see?
Oh, you have to scroll down.
Oh, wait, it's mine. What?
Yeah.
I don't know how to do that. I'm useless. I'm a useless human being.
Here, I'll get it and I'll put it up.
Oh, hold on. I know what to do. Okay.
There you go, Mike.
Okay, so here it is. So obviously you can see he few years ago, first foray into the NHL, pretty solid. Played 26 games, ended up with 255 goals against, 16 wins, and a .913 save percentage. And then it's kind of gone downhill a little bit. A .902 save percentage in the bubble year, and then an .896 save percentage this past season, and a .302 goals against. I was listening to a whole whack of people talk about him today. Apparently, Noodles was talking about how Mitch Korn, who was the goalie coach that was in Washington, he left the organization. And I guess that's kind of when Samsonov's game started to kind of teeter a little bit. But they feel like he's a good enough goaltender. He's a good enough goaltender where you're going to be able to potentially get him back on the rails, I suppose, about it. And I also feel good about it. I don't know if we're still how that
You're
works. There we go.
You just took me out though. There you go.
Jeez Louise, I can't use this thing to save my life. But I think that he'll be a decent bet option at the very least. The point that I want to make is I think it's a good bet. And at 1.8 million bucks, I think now you look at the tandem, you're spending 6.5 million on your goaltending. You still don't feel great about it, like Matt Murray and Samsonov, but at the end of the day, I think you have two goaltenders, and Kyle Dubas even said this in his media availability, which we'll listen to tomorrow. In tomorrow's episode, we'll kind of break it down. He said we got two goalies who are still young enough where there could be a long-term partnership with these guys. And Samsonov, who's a former first-round pick, a very highly touted prospect at one point, if he could put it back together, and this is typically the age where guys do put things together at the goaltending position, mid to late 30s. They've got the new goaltender development program department that they've got here in Toronto. Hopefully that this could be a player along with Matt Murray who they can find some success with and turn him into a solid tandem, a stable of goaltenders. Health obviously going to be a strong factor for Matt Murray. But I have some hopes with Samsonov, and then he'll be an RFA next season, so they could even bring him back on and tender him to a qualifying offer next year at 1.8 if it turns out to be a successful run for him this season. So I like that signing. I thought it was a pretty good deal for him.
On top of that, Mike, he's an RFA at the end of this. So
I literally just said that, Dave.
But I don't. Sorry. What I wanted to add to that was if, let's say, he does well and the salary demands are too much, like it was with Jack Campbell, you can then package him off and give him his other opportunity somewhere else. Like the Leafs, I think the important thing here with the Leafs is that they're not feel like that this is a one year thing, right? Too often we've been going year to year to year with a lot of players, and that we got to do it now before this guy leaves. We got to figure it out before this guy leaves. And I think with Samsonov, at least, yeah, he's probably going to want to take this and get himself into that starter money category. And he's motivated.
He's got a long way to go. Long way to go before he gets there. That's for sure. But he's in a situation where he has an opportunity to do it. So that's a pretty good carrot, if you ask me, to succeed and to figure things out. Work ethic, I guess, was a bit of an issue the last couple of seasons as well. And maybe a change of scenery in this whole situation where left untendered by a team that took him in the first round. Maybe that's a bit of a slap in the face. And that's kind of the kick in the ass that Samsonov needs to kind of kick it into high gear and kind of improve on that work ethic. And hopefully we can see that the fruits of that labor come through with Toronto this season. So that was the first signing, the first domino to fall, and it was a pretty good one, I'd have to say. It was the one that we were all kind of hoping to see, either him or Eric Comrie, and Samsonov was number one on both of our lists. So that was a solid signing. And then Nicholas Aube-Kubel came through as well, Stanley Cup champion. The man who dented the cup 5 minutes after winning it as well. But yeah, Aube-Kubel. I'm curious to get your thoughts on this signing because it kind of came out of nowhere, to be honest. I wasn't even thinking about this kind of player or this player in particular. I don't hate it, but I felt as though I wanted to see a little bit more meat and potatoes from like those fourth line signings, and they signed Aube-Kubel, Adam Gaudette, and Denis Malgin were like the three other signings that they made today, all kind of similar players in a way where they're a little undersized. Aube-Kubel and Gaudette, a little more, two-way guys who've got a little bit of grit to them, as opposed to Malgin, who's just straight, speed, skill player. But overall, what did you think of these depth signings for Kyle Dubas in Toronto?
I like the Aube-Kubel signing. I like that, he's a guy that brings that speed element. I think, I don't look at the offensive numbers when I look at a guy who's expected to be a fourth liner. I kind of like to see what are the other things he does. Like, is he going to be a physical presence? How is he going to be in, trying to drive play? Because the fourth line, the last thing you want is guys who are unable to, possess the puck and transition out of their own end, or just, be able to work the cycle. He's someone that can do that. I also just wonder what this means for like a guy like Wayne Simmons and Clifford. I mean, I don't think Denis Malgin is pushing any of those guys out the door, but like a Kubel could. He's a good age too. He's 26, so he's not somebody that I'm worried about his speed dropping off at this point. And yeah, I think I like the physicality of his game. I was looking at some video highlights. This is a guy that's not afraid to go and lay the body. He's not big by any stretch. I know that we discussed that, maybe adding some size would be nice, but
Bit of an agitator in a way.
I don't mind that. I want a guy that is willing to do it, right? Not someone that's going to do it once in a while. I want someone that's going to do it, and it's a part of the fabric of their game.
So I'm going to open up. I'm going to try this again, Dave, where I'm going to try and utilize this, share tab situation. But I've opened up Natural Stat Trick, a website that you and I both like to use to dig into the analytics and the numbers that are provided to the public a little bit. So here it is here. So when you look at some of the numbers that I want to look at, so Aube-Kubel is a pretty solid defensive player. Offensively, he had 11 goals this season, which is okay. If you can score 11 goals out of your fourth liner, I think you're happy with that. But it's more so defensively that you're going to be happy with him. So when you take a look at what he was able to do this year, he was on the ice for the least amount of goals against per 60 out of all players on the Colorado Avalanche. So to me, that's a really good sign, because if you even take a look at his zone starts, only 38% offensive zone starts. So a majority of his starts were in the defensive zone. And if you're taking a lot of defensive zone draws and your goals against per 60 is the lowest on the team, that looks pretty good. Especially you also look at the expected goals number right here of 2.31, and that is almost a full goal per 60 less that he's allowed than is expected. So to me, that's a really, really good sign for a player who, suppresses and doesn't allow a whole lot. It could somewhat speak to, let's see what the save percentage was. It could also speak to like a really high save percentage, which it did, an on-ice save percentage of 955 when he's out there. But when you even look at some of the other analytics that I like to look at when I try and decipher if a player is good defensively, scoring chances against per 60. So 7th, which is pretty well tied with like these guys, like all of these players, but 7th on the Colorado Avalanche at 24.85 scoring chances against per 60. Expected goals is up there. And also, what was the other one that I saw that I wanted to look at? Oh, shot attempts. So shot attempts, only allowed the third most shot attempts per 60 when he's out there on the ice as well. So those are pretty good defensive metrics that I typically like to look at in a way. So I think that Nicholas Aube-Kubel is a pretty solid fourth line player. He'll probably get some penalty killing time, I would assume, as well. Could kind of fill in a little bit of that Ilya Mikheyev type of role that he played. So I don't think he's as good as Mikheyev, but he can be a little bit similar of a role in terms of being, a bottom six player who's got a little bit of speed, a little bit of grit, and can also kill some penalties as well.
Yeah.
So that's my understanding of what Nicholas Aube-Kubel can bring to the Maple Leafs.
It's pretty good analysis there, and we know the Leafs have a good analytics department. We know that. Look, they got to watch a lot of them during the Stanley Cup playoffs, as did most of us. He's not a guy that I did notice a little bit, but I wasn't like every game keying on watching Nicholas Aube-Kubel. He wasn't the main draw on the Colorado Avalanche. But to see how his stats lined up with the top guys defensively, I think that's a pretty good sign there for the Leafs. And they got to just make sure that he's surrounded by the right players as well in that situation of him being on the fourth line on top of that.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. And that's where Adam Gaudette is another guy who's probably going to come in and play a little bit of fourth line minutes. Before we get into Gaudette and before we talk about some of the other deals that went on around the NHL, why don't we hear from one of today's show sponsors? And do I have the first show sponsor? I think I do. It's Athletic Greens. we've had a tough start to this podcast. We had some issues, some technical errors, and man, we are just trying to
We
cruise right along for you guys. That a long day.
yeah,
Long day,
we've
guys.
both
Long
had
day.
long
guys.
days, long nights.
Yeah. But today's podcast was brought to you by Athletic Greens. Athletic Greens. I mean, our next partner has a product that I like to use pretty well every day. I started taking the AG1. I just simply wanted better gut health. I wanted a little bit more energy, and I want to try and optimize my immune system. So now that I've been on it for a couple of weeks, I absolutely love it. I don't, I doesn't really taste like it's all that healthy, and it's got a little mild tropical taste to it that I actually look forward to drinking each and every morning. So what is this stuff, you ask? Well, with one delicious scoop of AG1, you're absorbing 75 high quality vitamins, minerals, whole food source superfoods, and probiotics and adaptogens to help you start your day right. This special blend of ingredients supports your gut health, your nervous system, your immune system, your energy, recovery, focus, and aging, all of the good things that you want. Why do I personally like it? Well, I'll tell you why. Because again, I wanted to help with a little bit of digestion and some lack of energy, and I felt that it definitely was able to do that. It just take a look at it. It's lifestyle friendly, whether you're keto, paleo, vegan, dairy free, gluten free, and it just contains less than 1 gram of sugar. There's no GMOs, no nasty chemicals or artificial anything, while still tasting delicious. It costs you less than $3 a day that you're investing into your health, and it's cheaper than your cold brew habit. It's cheaper than getting all the different supplements yourself anyways. You're just investing in an all-in-one nutritional insurance. Athletic Greens has over 7,000 five-star reviews, recommended by professional athletes, trusted by leading health experts such as Tim Ferriss and Michael Gervais. Right now, it's time to reclaim your health and arm your immune system with convenient daily nutrition. It's just one scoop in a cup of water each and every day. That's it. No need for a million different pills and supplements to look out for your health. And to make it easy, Athletic Greens is going to give you a free 1-year supply of immune supporting vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. All you have to do is visit athleticgreens.com/NHL Network. Again, that's athleticgreens.com/NHL Network to take ownership over your health and pick up the ultimate daily nutritional insurance. Welcome back into Locked On Leafs podcast. I'm Mike DiStefano with Dave Morassutti. We're hosts here at Locked On Leafs. We've had a long day, Dave. You and I both a fairly long day, day one of free agency. You know, you're at Sportsnet doing your thing. I'm at TSN doing my thing. So we're right in the thick of it. I had a 13-hour work day today. I left my house at about 6:45 a.m. and I didn't roll back into my house until shortly after 8 p.m. Like that was the day that I had today. So if I'm a little tongue tied or a little bit, you know, not as energetic, it's been a long day, ladies and gentlemen. Very long day. But we have to bring you the pod. We got to let the people know, Leafs Nation know what happened with the Maple Leafs and what happened around the NHL and our thoughts about it all. We're about to quickly touch on Adam Gaudette and your thoughts on him. And you can even speak on Denis Malgin if you would like. But, you know, the two other signings that Toronto made today, and just overall what you think their impact could be with this club.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because when we were looking at like depth options, because this is where everyone was looking at in terms of what the Leafs needed. Adam Gaudette wasn't near the top of my list. I know this is something they probably have seen a lot of because you know, he played in Ottawa, so he's obviously somebody that's close by, and they probably scouted quite a bit. He wasn't really the one I thought of. I know you were a big proponent of a guy like Tyler Mott, who I thought would have been a decent addition there. I mean, we heard
Zach, by the way, didn't sign.
No, and Zach Aston Reese, I don't think he signed either. So
yeah.
We're here. That could potentially change. I know, like some guys, they like to make sure that they get everything before they make that final decision. But yeah, like Adam Gaudette, he's an interesting player in that I know some people are not exactly thrilled. Like he was somebody that had a pretty decent start to his NHL career with Vancouver.
The thing with Gaudette that worries me is like he's 3 or 4 years pro at this point, and he's now on his 4th team, and that's always a red flag. right? And it's not even that he's being traded. He's just not being qualified by these teams. Like, why aren't the Ottawa Senators qualifying Adam Gaudette at like $1 million to come and play for their team? Right? Like, that's if the Senators don't want him for $1 million, I'm not sure what the Maple Leafs feel like. I know he's up 750,000 is a much cheaper contract, not even much, but it's a little bit cheaper. But it's the fact that I don't see Adam Gaudette as a lock to be an everyday NHLer. I think he's a guy who, at $750K, you say, if he works out and if he plays well enough to be a fourth line center, which I think he can be, like, he's a two-way guy. He's pretty effective. He's got a little bit of jump to his game. I think that, sure, if it works, great. If it doesn't, probably a Marley's type of signing. And that's what I think both the Gaudette and Malgin signing could be. Aube-Kubel, I expect to be a regular in this lineup. Not so sure about these other two guys. I think they'll be in the mix of the Andersons, the Steves, the Abruzzes, and whoever else may end up getting gobbled up by the Maple Leafs over the next couple of days, battling for some bottom six roles.
I think the thing with like an Adam Gaudette too is I think they clearly want guys with a little more jump to their step, as you mentioned, energy, right? We know some just to keep the temp high.
I want that because the fourth line of these old ass gray beards, I'm over it. I'm over it.
What, you didn't like the Giordano to Spezza to Simmons to Spezza finish, or was it Spezza that finished, or was it? I can't remember who.
Yeah, it was pretty sweet. Like, it was pretty sweet when we saw that, like, the oldest goal in however many years. But
it was also the oldest goal in as many years.
Yes, and it happened once, not multiple times. So I think I guess a blind squirrel is going to fly into the nut at some point, and that may have been that. But I'd prefer to have a more effective fourth line. Because you look at what we saw in the playoffs, they were far more effective. It doesn't necessarily have to be, the speediest of guys. Pat Maroon's not an absolute speedster. Corey Perry's not an absolute speedster. But they are effective players. And that's what I want on the fourth line. And I think Aube-Kubel can be that. Jury's out on Adam Gaudette. Jury's out on Denis Malgin. But we'll see what those guys can bring.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna write off these guys until I see them in games. That's the thing here. It's like every team, these guys can have different roles, different fits. So I want to just see what's the role that the Leafs envision for Denis Malgin, who's, well, I mean, they just refuse to give up on this guy. So clearly, there's something that they really want.
Yeah, I saw a tweet that said in order for him to come back to North America, he had to sign by the 15th. So he had to sign by Friday.
Yeah.
There was some sort of agreement that if he would have went to training camp in Zurich, I believe he was playing with, then he probably was going to have to end up sticking around with his team over in Europe. But because they signed him and brought him back, there's a agreement that he can come over back to North America. So they decided to make that happen because they had his rights still as an RFA. Do you want to kind of move on and get to some of these other signings that we saw happen throughout the day and react to the Johnny Gaudreau news, kind of some of the dud signings we saw? Andre Palat, late night signing. He ends up elsewhere. We'll get to all that and more. But before we get to it, Dave, watch all the good folks about Built Bar.
Yeah, from the people who vetted healthy and tasty comes the latest gift for your taste buds. You probably tried the coconut brownie chunk Built Bar. Guess what? Your friends at Built are giving the Coney coconut brownie chunk the puffs treatment as well. That's right. All that flavor you love in a deliciously chewy marshmallow covered in 100% real chocolate. It's like a fluffy cloud of coconut brownie goodness. Stop drooling for a second, guys. Just listen. Because not only are they good for you, they're low calorie, low sugar, high protein, all delicious. They're only here for a limited time, so make sure you go to built.com right now to make sure you don't miss out. They're going fast because they taste amazing. All Built are made with collagen protein, which your body absorbs more efficiently and provides tons of health benefits. Eat something that tastes good and is good for you. The best part about Built Puffs is, of course, they taste amazing, but you can enjoy them guilt-free because they're actually good for you. They're the perfect treat when you're craving something, when you need to satisfy a sweet tooth, or if you just need a quick, healthy snack on the go. They are an excellent source of protein as well. So, delicious, coconut-rich, sweet, brownie, creamy marshmallow. Stop fantasizing. Get to Built.com to order your box of coconut brownie chunk puffs right now. And if you need a little extra incentive, make sure you use the promo code LOCKED15 to get 15% off your order. So that's promo code LOCKED15 to get 15% off your order at Built.com.
Welcome back into the Locked On Leafs podcast. I'm Mike DiStefano with Dave Morassutti. We're hosts here at Locked On Leafs, and the offseason's here, but Dave and I still going to bring you content throughout the offseason. So make sure that you are subscribed to Locked On Leaf, both via audio form for when you're on the road, and also you can check us out video platform on YouTube if you're one of those YouTube viewers, which I know there's lots of. We have tons of YouTube views. We got a couple thousand views per day, essentially, on each video. But still only about 20% of those viewers are subscribers. So we got to subscribe up. Come on, give us some love. If you enjoy the video, subscribe. Come back each and every day for brand new Leafs and hockey talk. Well, we've spent a majority of this podcast, basically all of it, talking Leafs, as we should. It's a Leafs-centric podcast. But obviously, there's a lot more done today within the NHL. None bigger than Johnny Gaudreau. I was shocked. For those who aren't aware, and I'm sure everybody is at this point, if you're listening to this, you're probably an avid hockey fan anyway. He ends up signing in Columbus, leaving potentially, reportedly, as much as $16 million on the table from what Calgary had offered him to go to Columbus. 7 years, $9.75 million per season. Johnny Jacket is what they're going to call him down in Ohio.
Worse.
Dude, I tweeted this out. So first of all, my first reaction to the deal is, if you're leaving that much money on the table to go to Columbus,
why?
Like, you were never going to re-sign in Calgary. Like, he never wanted to go to Calgary. It's very evident. And the sob story, I want to be close to my family, BS. You signed in Columbus. Your family's in New Jersey, which is close to Philadelphia, in that area, like that end of New Jersey of the state. It's complete BS. That's what he wanted to do. I guess now he's closer, technically, and he went east, which is what he wanted to do. But there were multiple offers in and around the same range that the Devils reportedly offered, and the Islanders were also reportedly in on that as well. And ultimately, he says, actually, I want to go to Columbus. And I don't know if we could pull up the tweet, actually, or I think David Alter tweeted out what Jarmo Kekalainen said. I don't know if you saw that tweet, but essentially he came out and he was like, shocked himself that Johnny Gaudreau wanted to go to Columbus. He's like, really? You want to come here? We had you on our list, but we just assumed you didn't want to come, basically. Let's pull up the tweet here. Yeah, so for those who are listening, quote, he told us that this was one of his true primary destinations, Kekalainen said Wednesday evening, the general manager of the Columbus Blue Jackets. We were like, okay, wow, is this real? The man's asked if it was real, Dave. You think he was joking with him. He didn't think he was coming to Columbus himself. He said once he realized that it was real, he wanted to come. They got into some serious talks, and we obviously let him know that he was one of the players that we had desired the most. And when it got real serious to where he was like, okay, I want to come there, then we got it through the finish line pretty quickly. So that was Jarmo Kekalainen, the general manager of the Columbus Blue Jackets. Just a massive shocker. And I equated this to him leaving, given the Heisman to Calgary, leaving that amount of money on the table and just saying, I don't want to be here so badly. I would rather play in Columbus. Such an egregious exit to the likes of LeBron James taking his talents to South Beach.
Well, he's just going to Miami, man. Like if he did the opposite of Cleveland, I mean, Cleveland was his home. But this is the part that really gets me. If you read this, Columbus did not expect this.
No.
That's the part that gets me. Columbus didn't even think they had a chance because all the reports were he wanted to go home. Brad Treliving, when he went on that almost funeral-like press conference the day that he got when Gaudreau told him it's over, basically saying it's not me. Sorry, it's not you, it's me.
BS. BS. It was all BS.
Yeah, it was pretty much. I think what it is too. I don't know how New Jersey is as a hockey market in terms of like media pressure and all those things. I don't think it's
I don't
anywhere.
think it's overly
No,
high. I'll be honest. I don't think it's overly
not
high.
like the
So
Islanders. They get it pretty hard from their fans sometimes. Lou Lamoriello is not exactly the most easygoing general manager
yeah.
to work with. But I mean Philadelphia, forget that. Like that's just you're asking for trouble sometimes if you're not in the right situation there. But I thought New Jersey had it locked in the bag. Like all they just
So
need
did
to do
I.
is, all right, tell us what you want in the contract, and we will sign the check, and then we'll get this going.
There was a report. I've seen conflicting
Yeah.
reports of what was offered in New Jersey. The original one said they offered something north of 9, and then I saw a follow up that said, "Nah, I'm hearing that there was potentially an offer made north of 10 million," and he still elected to go to Columbus. So Columbus was clearly a destination he wanted to go to, and I think you're bringing up the point that it's being speculated perhaps he went there because he wants to be he's like a Phil Kessel type guy where he just wants to go and play in a non-traditional market, just wants to play hockey, score a bunch of points, light it up, and I mean get paid whatever he can, I guess, to do that, but not have to face the media each and every day in a Canadian market at that. I saw a pretty great tweet that said, tell me you tell me you want to leave Calgary without telling me you want to leave Calgary, or tell me how much you hate Calgary without telling me how much you hate Calgary. And then it was Gaudreau signs in Columbus. It was pretty funny meme, but shocked, man. Like I still,
This might be one of the
just,
biggest shocks in free agent history, in my opinion.
yeah, I would say so. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Like
100.
I can't think of any other like in terms of big names going somewhere else. Like Tavares to Toronto was surprising, but it wasn't shocking. Like everyone's just like, "Oh my god!" Like it was almost like,
Well, they're in the mix. They're in the running.
Yeah.
The thing about Columbus is they came out of nowhere. There was a report mid-afternoon. I think Frank Saravalli from Daily Faceoff, he tweeted out, "I got an interesting note saying that potentially Columbus could be a dark horse in the mix on Johnny Gaudreau." And then hours later, it actually happened. So it was definitely caught everybody off guard. But now my question is like, what happens in Calgary? And that's something we can get into a little bit later. I want to continue our free agency discussion. So New Jersey missed on Johnny Gaudreau, went out and got themselves Andre Palat on a late deal. He gets $6 million a year on a 5-year contract. Thoughts on that one?
I mean, it's not Johnny Gaudreau, but it's still a solid player in terms of a guy that I think was a bit underrated in Tampa because he scored some big goals for them in the playoffs.
Playoff
He
performer.
is a big playoff performer. He's just a guy though that you would like to compliment, like on a second line, right? He wasn't obviously their primary target. Their primary target was Johnny Gaudreau. So
Right. Yeah.
I still think like that's a decent pickup. The money isn't. It's kind of where I expected for a guy like Andre Palat.
I don't like the deal, I'll be honest.
It's a little long though. If you're giving him 6 mil, the 5 years is the term is a bit lengthy for him, but he earned the right.
Oh, absolutely. He completely earned the right to do whatever he wants, but he's already 31. I mean, this guy could fall off real quickly.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, this is typically where the wheels fall off, and you're giving him a 5-year deal till he's 36. We'll see. We'll see what ends up happening there. But that was an interesting move that we saw happen today. What else kind of sparked your interest and kind of caught your eye for one of the deals that went down today?
Man, there were
Obviously Jack Campbell
to
Edmonton. We kind of knew, like we had speculated that was the case, but it was made official. He did end up going to Edmonton for 5 years, $5 million. But What else?
I wasn't expecting Anaheim to land Ryan Strome. I thought that was an interesting. It seems like a nice destination for him, but I'm like, I did see our good boy Nick Alberga did say that they were in the running for Ryan Strome, and it did happen. I just thought that was a curious landing spot for him.
Yeah, I had Anaheim as because they had like 30 million in cap space. They had the most cap space out of any team going into free agency. I had them as like a dark horse Nazem Kadri kind of favorite, not a favorite, but like a dark horse Kadri landing spot. So if they didn't end up getting close to Kadri, maybe that's why they said, okay, maybe we'll go after Ryan Strome because that deal came a little bit later in the day too.
Yeah.
So I wonder if that's kind of what happened. They pivoted and went with Ryan Strome instead.
Yeah, I think the deal that shocked me the most had to be the Vincent Trocheck one with the Rangers.
I was shocked by the term.
Yeah, it wasn't the cap hit. $5 million for a second line center. It's almost like you're swapping out Ryan Strome for Trocheck for the money, but 7 years? What?
Yeah, that's a lot. That's a lot for someone who's got some injury history too. Right?
Like for around that money, they could have brought back Andrew Kopp.
They could have, but I assume they decided they wanted Trocheck over Kopp at the end of the day, right? That seemed like a business decision. Yeah. They took Trocheck over Kopp.
Yeah. Can I also just point out throughout all of this, the Tampa Bay Lightning decided to give 3 players $8 million deals, north of $5 million, and somehow think they have just unlimited salary cap space right now.
Yeah, 8-year deals, all north of 5 sheets. Yeah, it was 5.2 for Chernak, 6.5 for Cirelli, and 8.5
for Sergachev.
Yeah, 8.5 for Sergachev.
More than heaven, by the way. Just gonna point that out there.
Yep. Yeah, insane. Insane. I think I saw a tweet. They've got like 3 million left in cap space next year and only 14 players signed. Should be interesting to see how that goes.
Yeah, what team's gonna bail them out of that one?
Yeah, they'll be fine. Trust me, they'll be able to figure it out. But yes, that did also kind of come down today. What's your doofus deal of the day? I kind of have two. Which one to you was the one that you're gonna look on, or you're looking at it today, and you're like, that's going to be a terrible contract, and will also age out to be terrible.
I think Ben Sherratt to the Red Wings. I think
like that.
I like the term for the first couple of years will seem okay, but I think as he gets older, I don't know if that deal is going to age well with him.
I don't know if I don't mind that actually. Yeah. I didn't mind that deal personally. I thought that it was okay. It was roughly what I thought he was going to get.
I'm not a big fan either, though. That's the other thing.
What's that?
I'm also not a big Ben Sherratt fan either, so that all.
That's fair. To me, it was Eric Goodbranson. 4 years.
That was going to be my second one.
$4 million a year for Goodbranson, and I saw somebody tweet all the conspiracy theories are coming out about Gaudreau. And he said Gaudreau had to have become best friends with Goodbranson while they were in Calgary together, and basically said, "Okay, you sign this guy to 4x4, I'll come play for you." And essentially, it was a package deal that had to get his buddy 16 sheets to come along with him. And that's how Goodbranson ended up with a 4x4 deal.
I think that probably is the worst signing of the day. If I'm like, probably that one. Yeah. Like if I'm Eric Goodbranson, you do not make one single complaint to your agent about any of the work he has done. This man has given you not only a pretty lengthy career, but he has made some serious coin for being a very below average defenseman.
Absolutely, he has. He has done extremely well for himself, given the performance that he's had out there on the ice. But right shot defenseman can play top 4 minutes, and he's rugged. Those guys, there's not a lot. It's a supply and demand type of situation. That's why I saw Ilya Mikheyev go for almost $3 million at $275 to Buffalo, taking a little stroll down the QEW to the Buffalo Sabres.
Yeah, 2 years. Go to the Sabres. That was like, out of all the teams, I'm like, Buffalo? It seems a little odd.
it was just a random team that I honestly didn't even think about. But I mean, they need defense, I suppose. It
They
is
lost,
what it
but they
is.
did lose Colin Miller. I think
Ilya Mikheyev, 4 years, 475.
okay. The when I saw the contract, I'm like, it's not terrible. When I saw it was Vancouver, I'm like, Vancouver, they don't need forwards.
Oh, they could use probably a little bit of
Like,
everything,
penalty
but
kill help they definitely need, but
he also got like a 12-team no trade clause as well. Like, in what world should Ilya Mikheyev
demand.
be given a demand a no trade clause?
Not only that, I'm sorry, but what team is going to trade for that contract? Like, I
Yeah, you're right.
those are the tough contracts.
Although you see, I mean, someone traded for Matt Murray's contract. I don't know. I don't know who that guy was, but it happens. People trade for contracts, pal, and it leaves us all a little baffled. But to me, like 475 for Mikheyev, just way too much. Like at least $1 million. I would say $1 million too much for me.
Yeah, like this the thing I always like Nick Paul. His deal should have been the benchmark for Ilya Mikheyev because I think
Yeah, he was 325.
yeah, I mean it is Tampa, so he took the Tampa discount to stay there, but I still think like he's the better player, right? So like I thought his deal was going to be kind of a comparable. Nope, Ilya, and I think Vancouver is just very desperate to get what Ilya Mikheyev provides, and I'm sure there was another team bidding for it.
I feel like they wanted Nichushkin, and then when he didn't hit the market, they pivoted to the other Russian
Mhm.
and went and got Mikheyev. Like they just wanted a speedy power winger. I think that's what they were looking for to add to that mix, add to that group. Look, I hope Mikheyev works out. I liked him in Toronto. I thought he was a serviceable middle six player. Nah, he was a good third liner. He's a third liner to me. That's why I find it so hard to pay somebody just a hair under $5 million when I look at him as a third liner who can kill penalties.
Yeah.
Really good third liner, right? But like at the end of the day, he's a third line guy who kills penalties.
Mhm.
You don't got to pay $5 million for that.
Mhm.
So that to me was a bit of an overpayment. But good for Cobra getting himself a nice healthy deal.
Another
Your favorite deal of the day?
I was gonna say feel good signing for me had to be Mason Marchman.
Yeah, well, that was interesting because early in the day,
It was
it seemed like he was going to Carolina,
yeah.
and then it was like, actually, sounds like he's going to Dallas instead. And then Carolina said, "All right, we missed out on Marchman. Let's just go and acquire Max Pacioretty for
Nothing.
future considerations."
Nothing. Like
Oh man, the NHL is wild sometimes.
where Max Pacioretty, who underrated sniper in this league, went for nothing. It was nothing.
Yeah.
Literally, the Carolina Hurricanes tweeted, "Thank you, nothing for doing absolutely nothing but getting
Yeah.
Max Pacioretty."
Future considerations. Claude Giroux to Ottawa was a real shrewd signing. We kind of knew that was coming though. 3 years, $6.5 million for him. Brett Kulak actually is an underratedly good signing. I thought he was really solid for Edmonton throughout the playoff run. Getting him up that 275, the same amount of money as Ilya Labushkin on a 4-year term. I thought that was a pretty good signing. You know who I thought had an underratedly good day? Detroit. And I'll tell you why. I liked Andrew Copp. I didn't see Andrew Copp going to Detroit, but I liked him as a player. I like him as a signing. But you look at two other, players that they went after. David Perron, they took a flyer on, signed him to a 2-year contract, and Dominic Kubalik. And Dominic Kubalik, they signed to 2 years, $2.5 million AAV for Dominic Kubalik. Where the heck was Kyle on that one? That is to me a very, very intriguing number that I would have loved to have Kubalik in the mix in your middle six somewhere. He could play both wing spots. I think that's a missed opportunity to me for Kyle Dubas. If that's all you could have, that's all Kubalik was looking for was 2.5. And you couldn't match that or maybe better it a little bit. Anyway, but so I thought that was a really good signing. But why I felt it was real solid is they're only 2 years. He didn't eat into those future dollars for when Mo Seider and Lucas Raymond are going to get their paydays. And that's where I think teams they get into some trouble where they start to get that sniff of success, and they start, going out on free agency and signing these guys to all these massive deals. And then their young core finally grows into the stars that they are. It's like, now we're in cap hell. John Tavares is a perfect example of that, by the way.
Yeah, I mean, when you think about what the future needs of your team are, like, I think Detroit didn't do a bad job in making sure that they didn't lock themselves in too deep. I did hear, I think it was Elliot Friedman that kind of pointed the Red Wings as a landing spot for Andrew Copp. So I wasn't too surprised. I think just the fact that, when I looked at like David Perron to Detroit really surprised me, just because I thought like he was destined to stay in St. Louis or stay in the West. But I mean, they gave him 4.75. That's a pretty decent number for him, even if for just 2 years. I think that was a pretty decent number. Arturi Lehkonen staying in Colorado, that surprised me a little bit.
Well, he's an RFA, so I think they were going to re-sign him.
Yeah,
anyways.
but like for 5 years, like that's a
it's a bit of a hefty deal. And that contract probably takes them out of the running for Nazem Kadri.
I think so.
Like it's got to essentially. I mean, what are they sitting at now after that deal? They can't have a whole lot of money left, I wouldn't think, after that one.
About Nathan McKinnon.
And then there's Nathan McKinnon next year as well. Right, that you got to kind of sit there and think about the Avalanche. Yeah, they got $3.9 million left. Now, Kadri's done.
Yeah.
Doors closed. I'm bringing back Nazem the Dream after you went and brought in Arturi Lehkonen and Josh Manson today.
Yeah, Josh Manson too. That was another. I mean, it made sense.
They just brought the band back together. Like I don't hate that at all. I like the moves that they made. I thought they overpaid a little bit for some of their guys, which it is what it is, I suppose. They won you a championship, so sometimes you feel a little obligated to do that. But ultimately, I still think it's a pretty darn good team that could compete for another Stanley Cup.
Oh, how about the Panthers getting the Stahl brothers? I know that Eric's on a tryout, but Mark Stahl and Eric.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's an interesting situation that's going on there. Maybe they trade for Jordan potentially.
I don't even know.
Get them
Carolina's going all in, man. Getting Brent Burns, Pacioretty, like they're not messing around.
No, they are not. I don't know if there's. I'm just taking a peek now, seeing if there was anything else that piqued my interest throughout the day, and I can't quite. Andre Kasher will not be back because he ended up signing 1 year, $1.5 million contract with Carolina. Blackwood signed $1.2 million with Chicago, so neither of those guys will be returning to Toronto. Actually, all of the UFAs that the Maple Leafs let go were signed on day one of free agency. Colin White only signed for $1.2 million. I thought that was a pretty true deal for Florida.
That's what I thought too. I'm like, so wait, Colin White goes for 1.2, and like some of these other guys they went for. I'm like, are we being serious right now? Like,
yeah.
I mean, the Florida, like 1.2 million in Florida money versus what other teams could offer is also.
Right.
And he's again what I said in the last episode, which is he's a guy that's going to try to redig his value and go and try to get back the money that his buyout, what he lost. So interesting move.
Yep. Interesting move, and still some players left out there for the pickings. Still going on. Nazem Kadri, that guy still is technically in need of a place to play next year, to call home. Technically, you still got Phil Kessel out there, Dylan Strome, a player that I had on my list of guys that I wanted. He's still available as a potential player. The top defenseman on the market, John Klingberg, hasn't signed yet. Paul Stastny, Nino Niederreiter. There's still some pretty solid players that are out there and available. Sonny Milano is a guy who I wouldn't mind as a cheap fourth line player who could come in, maybe even be like an Andre Kasha type replacement. I would like a Sonny Milano to be in a way. So I think that there are some good players still left to be had for any team, but even the Maple Leafs, should they want to try and dip back out into the free agent market. There was a lot of fanfare about Sam Gagner. I'm surprised that didn't end up coming to fruition, actually, with the Toronto Maple Leafs, considering how much we had heard about it leading up to free agency the last month or so. But that never kind of came down. Maybe that's something in the next couple of days we could see potentially coming through for Toronto. I know Kyle Dubas mentioned he still wants to go out there, add at least one more, depth defenseman, a couple more depth forwards. And I am hoping there's one more middle sixth addition as well, because, well, they need it. They really do need it. Tomorrow, we're going to break down what Kyle Dubas had to say in his press conference, though. He spoke to the media for about 15 minutes, talked a lot about the Matt Murray situation, the goaltending situation, talked about, what went into letting Jack walk, and then also discussed the additions that they made today in free agency. So we'll hear from him tomorrow. So make sure that you are subscribed so that you can get that episode as well. But that'll do it for us here today on the podcast. I'd like to thank you all for listening and supporting the show. You can subscribe to the Locked On Leafs podcast on all podcasts and platforms and receive daily Leafs content. Follow myself on Twitter at @Make_Canuck. Follow Dave at D_Morassutti. Follow the show as well at Locked On Leafs. We'll be back with another episode tomorrow. But until then, keep it locked right here on Locked On Leafs.